What's up guys? In this video, we're going to be discussing the catering side of things such as creating your wedding menu. We'll be going over the pros and cons of doing a plated dinner versus a buffet style dinner, as well as how you build out your menu. We'll also talk about the ways you can tie in your wedding theme or style, and then how you can take all of that and get it on paper for your menu. So we recommend you complete this step when you're about 3 months away from the wedding day. The reason being that we want to have a finalized menu for your guests to look through once they open up those invitations. That way, when they go to submit their RSVPs through your wedding website, they can also select their meal preferences too. That means that as soon as those invitations arrive, we'll be able to get an accurate number on how many guests we can expect on the wedding day, as well as what everyone has chosen for their meal. We can then use that information to place our order with the catering company for all your appetizers, entrees, desserts, and anything else your guests might need. So make sure your RSVP deadline date is set about 3 to 4 weeks before the wedding date, because that's when we'll need to place your catering order. So let's start by discussing the difference between a plated dinner service and a buffet dinner service. Plated dinners are what you expect if you went out to eat at a restaurant. You would be presented with a menu when you sit down, and then your meal will be prepared and served on a plate. Typically, plated dinners would start with an appetizer course or a salad of some kind. Then the entree would be served shortly after. Guests will decide what they want to eat as they sit down. But in most weddings, these orders are placed weeks in advance when their guests are submitting their RSVPs. This way, dinner can be prepared and served much faster, and the couple will only need to buy enough food to fill the orders that have been placed, so this saves money. Buffet dinners, on the other hand, are large quantities of a few different dishes which have been laid out in a row for guests to pick and choose as they go. This is a popular option for a lot of couples because it gives their guests the most flexibility with what they want to eat. Guests would simply get their own food as each table is called up and then go back for seconds if they wish. While both options are completely acceptable in any wedding scenario, they each come with pros and cons you should be aware of. Plated dinners are considered more formal and elegant than buffet dinners, making them an excellent choice for black tie or upscale weddings. They also allow you to control the portions being served to guests, making sure that everyone gets the same amount of food and reduce the risk of wasting anything. And since plated dinners are served to each guest at their table, there is less commotion from guests who would otherwise be getting up to form lines at the buffet. And finally, it's easier to offer a more customized dining experience by accommodating different dietary restrictions and adhering to the preferences of individual guests. As for the con side, plated dinners are more labor intensive and require more staff to serve each guest, which in turn makes them more expensive than a buffet. Guests are also limited to the options provided on the menu, and it's not really easy to change or modify their selection. This will end up limiting the overall variety of food options being offered to your guests. And finally, plated dinners just take longer to serve each guest when in comparison to a buffet-style dinner. This means guests have a longer wait time for the food, and in turn, the window for dinner needs to be larger on the overall timeline. But if you decide to go with a buffet dinner, the pros might be that buffet dinners offer more variety in food options for the guests, allowing them to try new things and customize both their meal and their portions to their liking. They also require less staff to serve, which can result in lower overall costs than a traditional plated dinner, especially if you decide to do a potluck. It's also a faster service. Guests can start eating as soon as they get their food from the buffet, which means a shorter window for dinner. And finally, buffet dinners just tend to be more casual and relaxed, making them an excellent choice for more laid-back or informal weddings. As for the cons, with a buffet dinner, it's more challenging to control the amount of food served to each guest, which means more food being wasted and your food costs could be higher. Buffet dinners can also be crowded and rather noisy, which tends to distract from the overall atmosphere of the wedding and make it challenging for guests to mingle and socialize. It's also more challenging to offer accommodations for any guests who have dietary restrictions or allergies. And finally, you run the risk of guests not getting an equal amount of food, since some of the items will tend to run out faster than others. Given this information, the biggest determining factor for most is cost. For a plated dinner, the average cost per guest is $41, but for a buffet dinner, the average cost per guest is $28. So given all that information, go with whichever option seems to fit your vision best, and whichever choice you decide to go with, that will determine how we will build out your menu. So let's start breaking down what that looks like.
Thanks for watching, you guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget that you can subscribe to our channel right here, and we will see you in the next video.